you should never, 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 never hit the snooze button. Okay? And let me explain why. Here's how I want you to wake up. When the alarm rings, get out of bed. Period. You want to be a happy person. You want to have a positive mindset. You want to take control of the anxiety, the depression, and the stress that you have. Do not allow yourself, number one, when that alarm goes off, to turn it off and lie in bed and start to ruminate in your mind about everything that you've got to do today and how stressed you feel, and to marinate in those negative thoughts. I do not want you to do that. You're going to use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're going to get out of bed. The other thing I do not want you to do is I do not want you, like I used to do, I do not want you, when the alarm goes off, to reach over and tap the snooze button. The reason why I do not want you to ever tap the snooze button is because of how snoozing for a couple minutes impacts your neurology. It impacts your brain function. Again, this isn't something I made up. This is well-established research. You see, I used to be a chronic snooze button hitter. When Chris and I were going through a really rough time, or I notice in times in my life where I'm feeling stressed out or overwhelmed, when that alarm goes off, there's a small hesitation where I start to feel a little stressed and overwhelmed when I think about the day ahead. And it just feels so safe and so satisfying and so tempting to reach over and hit the snooze button and doze off for 9 minutes or 15 minutes. And then the alarm goes off again, and then I reach over and hit the snooze button, doze off for 9 to 15 minutes. And then the alarm goes off again, and then I reach over. And the reason why it's tempting to do that is because you're delaying having to deal with your life. You are giving yourself a false sense of control that I can find 9 to 15 minutes to just avoid having to deal with what I want to deal with. And so I don't want you to do that. And the reason why I don't want you to ever hit the snooze button is because of how dozing off for 9 to 15 minutes impacts the way that your brain works. So let me explain to you the science of sleep. Let me explain to you why the snooze button is such a dangerous thing to do for your productivity, your happiness, your mindsets, your ability to be a deliberate thinker, your ability to be in control of your life. And look, I know that at least 65% of adults hit the snooze button every single morning. So the reason why I don't want you to ever hit the snooze button, and why this is so important if you want to be in control of your mindset, of your happiness, of your mental health state, is because of the science of sleep. So you and I sleep in cycles. And the reason why we sleep, there's a lot of reasons why we sleep, but there's one main reason. Obviously, we fall asleep because our body needs to rest and rejuvenate. But there's another major reason for why we sleep, and it has to do with brain function. When you sleep, when you and I are falling asleep, half of our brain is allocated to running our body functions. The other half of our brain is able to basically just shut off and not really work. And while you and I are sleeping, do you know what your brain is busy doing? Your brain is busy taking all of the memories and things that happened to you today, and it is returning those memories and storing them in your brain, almost like returning books to a giant library system. If you didn't sleep every night, you would have no memories. One of the main reasons why we sleep is because by resting and allowing part of your brain to shut down for a while, your mind has the ability to store all of your memories from today. You wouldn't have any memories if you didn't sleep every night. And so part of the reason why sleep's so critical has to do with your brain function. It has to do with your cognitive abilities. And so the way that sleep works is we fall asleep, we sleep in cycles of about 75 to 90 minutes, and then we start another one. And we go into another sleep cycle for 75 to 90 minutes. And then we typically start another one, and we start another sleep cycle that goes 75 to 90 minutes. And after 2 or 3 sleep cycles, or heck, if you're lucky, 4 of them, your body and brain go into a mode where for about 2 hours, your brain just goes into a state where it's getting ready to wake up. So for those of you that wake up naturally before an alarm goes off, or the alarm goes off and you've had anywhere from 6 hours plus of sleep, Your mind is now in a state, it's not in a sleep cycle, where it is ready to wake up, it is ready to start the day, it is ready to be deliberate. If you wake up in that state and then you reach over and hit the snooze button and you doze off for 9 to 15 minutes, what do you suppose your brain starts again? If you're thinking a sleep cycle, you'd be absolutely right. And how long does a sleep cycle last? A sleep cycle lasts 75 to 90 minutes. So you drift off into a sleep cycle, your brain does, which lasts 75 to 90 minutes. All of a sudden, the alarm goes off 9 to 15 minutes later. Your brain is in a sleep cycle. You are in a medical, neurological state right now that scientists call sleep inertia. It means that by falling into a sleep cycle and waking yourself up 9 to 15 minutes in it, the cortic region of your brain is now trapped in a sleep cycle. And do you realize it takes your brain, once you're awake, 4 hours to shake itself loose of the state of sleep inertia? Why is sleep inertia a bad thing? Studies prove that when you're in a state of sleep inertia, it impacts your speed of processing, it impacts your ability to focus, it impacts your ability to do any kind of strategic thinking. So for you, if you're a chronic snoozer like I used to be, and you sleep and then the alarm goes off, then you hit snooze, then you drift into a sleep cycle, then the alarm goes off, then you hit snooze, then you drift into a sleep cycle, and then the alarm goes off and you get up, your brain, you know how you say when you're a snoozer, you're always like, I didn't get any sleep, and you feel so groggy and tired, and you keep saying, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I didn't get enough sleep last night. Guess what? Has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It has to do with the fact that when the alarm went off, instead of getting up, you started another sleep cycle. And then when the alarm went off 15 minutes later, you woke yourself up, and now your brain is trapped in a sleep cycle. You're in a state of sleep inertia. It has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It has everything to do with how you woke up. You literally have screwed yourself over. And so here's the deal. Here's one more piece of proof I can give you. You know how on the weekends or on a day that you're not working, the alarm goes off and you decide, oh, I'm just going to turn the alarm off and I'm going to snooze for a minute. You don't turn on the snooze button. You just turn the alarm off. Have you ever noticed when you go back to sleep on your own, how long do you normally drift off asleep for? An hour to 2 hours. That's because your brain is executing a sleep cycle. You do it naturally. You've had that experience before, haven't you? Where you've turned off the alarm, drifted back to sleep, and holy cow, you sleep for like 90 minutes. That's a sleep cycle. So that's why I never want you to hit the snooze button. Because when you hit the snooze button, you force yourself into a sleep cycle, you wake yourself up in the middle of it, and then the first 4 hours of the day, you are battling sleep inertia. There's only one way to shock yourself out of sleep inertia, and that's to step in a cold shower. So if you ever have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning when you probably are in the middle of a sleep cycle, just step in a cold shower. That'll shock your brain awake, and you'll be out of a state of sleep inertia. If you keep hitting the snooze button, I am going to tell you something. It's going to make your anxiety worse. It's going to make your depression heavier. It's going to make your attitude negative. It's going to make your ability to focus harder. It's going to make your ability to be deliberate harder. And the simple solution is to force yourself out of bed. So here's a couple concepts that I want you to think about. First, we're going to talk about globally how I want you to think about being able to focus your attention and get things done. Okay? And this is on a day-to-day basis. First of all, when I talk about productivity and the ability to focus your attention on a day-to-day basis, I want you to understand a simple fact. In order to get things done, in order to direct your focus and move through a task, you are going to require some brain power. And so I want you to think about your brain like a car engine, right? And a car engine is what you need in a car to power you forward. And your brain is like an engine that will power you forward to help you get tasks done. Now, an engine requires fuel, right? And sure enough, your brain has a certain amount of fuel. So imagine that you got like a tank that has fuel in it in your brain, okay? And as you wake up and as you go through your day and as you direct your attention on things, guess what happens to that fuel in your brain? It starts to drain. And so I want you to know this, because the tactics and the tools that I'm about to teach you relate to the fuel in your brain and what times of day you have the most fuel. What times of day you are more likely to be able to focus, okay? And what do you think, everybody, is the best time of day for your brain and for the amount of fuel that you have in your brain naturally in order to be able to tap into it and drive your focus at something that's important to you? I love this. You guys are right. Laura says my brain is mush by the end of the day. Everybody's saying morning, morning, morning. I see somebody saying, I feel like I'm on empty. This is a really good analogy because there are times where you feel like your brain is full of gas and you're able to direct your attention and focus. And then there are times where you're like, Jesus, I feel like I'm running on empty. I'm running on fumes here. And you're absolutely right, everybody. It is mornings. When you wake up, generally what the research shows is that your brain is primed to be able to focus for the first 4 hours of the day. The first 4 hours of the day tend to be, for most of us, the time of day when your brain has the most fuel and when your speed of processing is awesome and when you are able to direct your attention at what you need to be focused on, okay? So now there's a caveat to this. You can manufacture boosts of productivity and boosts of feeling like you've got a little bit more brain power. Number one, immediately after you exercise. So if you have a burst of cardio, 30 minutes is what a lot of the research says. But if you have a burst of cardio, you will get a little bit of increase in fuel. Another thing that helps is getting outside. Getting outside when you start to feel your energy and your focus start to go to empty, getting outside is another way to give yourself a boost of brain power. But generally speaking, everybody, you need to start to marry mornings with peak productivity, okay? This is true for most of us. There will be some of you that are like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mel Robbins, because I feel like my brain is full at the end of the day. If that's you, because I see some of you going, well, that's nighttime for me. You got to run with that. And you got to save the most important stuff for those moments where naturally you feel like you've got the energy and you got the fuel in the tank to be able to focus. So kind of like, you think, what do you think of when I say the word salt? You think of pepper. What do you think of when I say the word peanut butter? You probably think of jelly. When I say the word productivity and focus, for most of us, I want you to start thinking morning. And here's why that's important. The reason why that's important is because if you can own your mornings, if you can put that thing that matters to you first thing in the morning and make a little bit of progress on it, you are going to start to feel like you are more in control. You're going to start to see yourself using your best brain power and your highest level of fuel at the thing that matters most to you. So that's a little tip for you about productivity. Try to attack the thing that matters to you first thing in the morning, before you jump on your phone, before you answer emails, before you start attacking a to-do list that's full of shit you don't really care about, before you look at social media. Direct your brain when your fuel level is high and your focus is clear at the thing that matters to you. And it's not just because it makes sense that you would want to do this. I mean, the second you look at email, your stress level goes through the roof, your attention gets hijacked. But it's also because based on research, literally your margin for error increases. You know, they did this research with anesthesiologists. And do you know that the number of errors increase as the day goes on? The number of errors that we see in hospitals increase almost 3 times from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. From 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Hand washing decreases in hospitals, and that also relates to problems in the day. Now, look, the margin of error is very small, but what happens as you go through your day, particularly if you're not getting outside to increase the fuel in your brain and kind of reset your ability to focus, particularly if you're not introducing cardio, which also increases the fuel in the brain and helps you focus, is that your ability to maintain concentration as your fuel level decreases and your brain power decreases and the distractions increase and the number of things that you're trying to remember increase, your ability to laser focus decreases. That's why mornings matter, everybody, when it comes to focus and when it comes to human error, when it comes to distraction. This isn't just research. This is common sense. And, you know, this is not to slight anybody that is working in a hospital, because those folks are angels, particularly after this pandemic, and the margin of error is puny. But when we look at even a puny margin of error over the course of a day and of the decrease in brain power and the increase in information that your brain is absorbing, geez Louise, it does increase 3x. So you want to prioritize what's important to you first thing in the morning. And you know how I feel about the phone, everybody. Do not look at that damn thing until you have literally figured out what matters to you and you've made a little bit of progress. So if you stand every morning and can't stare at yourself because you think you're worthless or whatever, and let's say you oversleep and you missed a dentist appointment. Who hasn't done that, right? Yeah. I certainly have. Yeah. If you're somebody that has good self-esteem, you go, oh, shoot, I missed the dentist appointment. I'm going to have to pay the $25 fee. I guess I'll just reschedule it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're somebody who has really low self-esteem, you go, see, you can't do anything right. You can't make it to the dentist. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you're a piece of shit. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you are doing things wrong. You see, the difference between me having done all this work on myself, therapy, EMDR, psychedelic guided therapy sessions, all of the high 5 habits, learning how to regulate my nervous system, dealing with childhood trauma. The difference between where I am now and where I used to be is I screw up shit all the time. I don't hook you're a piece of shit to it anymore. I'm able to allow myself to screw up and go, good people do have bad days. I'm doing my best.
Right.
You know, I'll just pay the $25 and reschedule.
Right. And you don't like hold on to it.
Correct.
Right.
Hold on to it. Most of us like, you know, pour it all over ourselves. We just like bathe in it. Mm-hmm. And so meaningful mantras, I should have called them pathetic mantras. You're right. Are literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Interrupt that thought. I'm a bad person. I screw everything up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about it. And then you can insert something like, hey, I'm doing the best I can and I'm getting better every day. Hey, I'm doing the best I can. I'm getting. That's not exactly like, woo, we're going to run the Ironman kind of talk. But meaningful talk is something you can believe.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I like that. Again, this is, and then,
I can see your wheels turning. You're like, oh my God.
I am, because because it's so refreshing, and I really enjoy when people actually give you the hows, not just this is why it's happening, and go on and on and on. But these are like all, and this is in this book and in your other book, tangible. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, you want to get your mental health in order, and you want to have better self-worth and self-love. Here's what you do. Stop sleeping with your phone so it's not next to you when you wake up. That way, when you wake up, you'll get out of bed and you won't look at social media.
Where do you put the phone? Do you keep it downstairs?
I charge it in my bathroom.
You do? Okay. So,
yeah.
And what time are you off? What time are you off the phone at night?
Depends on the day. I mean, I don't do what's called the gray zone. So the reason why people are so screwed up right now is because you're living in what psychologists call the gray zone, which is you're never not working, which is your phone.
That's true.
And
You're
never
right.
not, like it's always on you. And so you never have a break ever.
That's true.
And there's no separation between work and life. And your life, like there's not going to be balance, but there can be harmony and there can be boundaries. And so one of the things that I have that's really helped me, because I love what I do for a living. It doesn't even feel like work.
Right.
I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I'd never see my husband or my children, but I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I have a basket in the kitchen. So I use a lot of environmental triggers to help me cheat good behavior. So an example of an environmental trigger is a basket in the kitchen that has plugs at it. So when I get home, I put my phone in the kitchen. A lot of times you can't reach me because it's sitting in the basket. It's not on me.
Right. You can't see it.
Correct.
It's in the basket.
Correct. So keeping it away from you is really important, because here's the thing. You're never going to be successful if you're on your phone 24/7. Never. You're going to always be busy and mistake it for success. If you want to be wildly successful, you better get strategic and smart. And it is not smart to let this thing use you. You need to be the one using it. And so I put it in the basket in the kitchen when I'm home, because we don't have phones when we're having a family dinner. And it would, I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. And thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the phone has been one of our biggest fights.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Me too.
just being distracted and not present with each other. So that's helped a lot. When I go to bed, it's in the bathroom. And for everybody that's worried because you're a single parent or you've got a job that you work a shift that you need to be available, no problem. Tell people, call me if you need me, and leave the ringer on. But tell them, if you text me, I'm not going to respond. It's amazing. People will text you in the middle of the night, but they won't call you unless it's an emergency. So that way you ensure that you get a good night's sleep, because you're not sitting there going to bed watching it or scrolling through it. Then when you wake up and the alarm rings, you have to get out of bed because it's in the bathroom. When you walk toward the bathroom, you have enough presence now to know that you're going to turn it off and flip it over. And now you've got a fighting chance to have the first 30 minutes of the day be for you. You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to stand in front of the mirror, and you're going to have a moment with yourself where you're going to think about who you're going to be today. You're going to think about what's important to you today. And then you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. And the other thing that happens, and why this is so powerful, in addition to the subconscious programming, I just spent a ton of time with Dr. Daniel Amen, one of the world's leading experts.
He was
as
on
you know.
here. Yep.
And he said he was so excited about the high five habit, not only because of all the stuff with neurobics, which is marrying neuroscience and neural pathways with aerobic activity. It's the fastest way to build new neural pathways, by the way. He was also super excited about it because when you cross a finish line, you raise your hands in the air. When the band that you love comes out, you raise your hands in the air. When you go to high five or double high five somebody, you raise your hands in the air. When you pat somebody on the back, you lift your arms in the air. The lifting, whether it's a high five or a fist bump or whatever, is coded into your nervous system as a positive rush. Remember how we talked about that anxiety rush?
Yes.
This is a positive energy force.
Right.
And so one of the reasons why it feels good, if you can push through the fact that it feels weird and you try it for more than 5 days, is because your nervous system starts to jump in. The other thing that happens is you get a drip of dopamine.
Yeah.
And that is why you suddenly feel a little lighter. You feel a little boost in your mood. You feel your shoulders drop. You feel like, okay, my life sucks right now, but I got this.
Right. And then the whole thing is, if you keep your phone in your bathroom and then you're not allowed to check the phone until you finish, or is it 30 minutes, or just you have to do the high five first?
Do what works for you. Like for me.
Don't you get stuck in the bathroom just checking your emails?
Absolutely not. You know why?
Why?
My mental health and my goals, my finances, my family, my dreams, way more important than what's on that fucking phone.
Right. So you don't check any emails for how long? For 30 minutes, you said?
I try.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
My husband's up at like 5. I'm like, I'm doing 75 hard right now, so I'm getting up a little bit earlier.
You're doing what?
That challenge 75 hard.
What is that challenge 75 hard?
It's some...
I guess I'm like out in the, I have no idea.
Amy's doing it too. We got roped into it. My husband and my daughter are doing it.
I've heard of it actually. But
it's 75 days. It's very male. Like I've decided I'm going to come up with something called like 21 Days Easier.
Oh, I think
which
is this the
like
one
my
that
thing.
Jesse Itzler's doing? No, that's not.
I have no idea.
Okay, no.
But
Okay,
it's like 2 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outside.
I did hear about this actually.
Gallon of water. You have to stick to a particular diet of your choosing. No alcohol. 10 pages of nonfiction. What else do we have to do?
So you have to do 240.
Workout, read,
water. Oh, progress photo. And you've got to do it 75 days in a row. And if you miss one day, you're out. You got to go back to 0.
So is it too late to start?
You can start anytime you want. It's not like a thing. It's like a thing you do yourself or with a group.
2 45-minute workouts a day. Can it be anything?
I walk my dog. Check.
For 45
I stretch.
minutes?
Check. Yeah, I'm into winning. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but this is the other thing. I have been like, and the high five habit is not for losers because we very wildly successful people, we tend to harp on the things going wrong. Mm-hmm. You will have so much more success and more joy and be a better leader if you are able to laser focus and celebrate the things going right.
But how do you teach that really?
You stand in front of a damn mirror
and you do the high five.
Yes.
So okay,
I know you do not want to believe it. I know
I do believe it. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna join the challenge. How about that?
You can do the 7. Yeah, do the high five challenge. 5 million people, 5 mornings in a row.
Okay.
It's hosted by Growth Day. What are the simple things that you can do in order to establish some new habits so that you bring the small discipline that you need, the micro moves that actually make your biggest dreams come true? And for those of you that have been following me for a while, some of this will be a refresher, some of this will be new. This week is all about how you change the small things in your day-to-day life. Hacks, tools, small habits that will help you stay on track. And the thing is that these are habits that whenever I'm not cranking, when I'm not cooking with fire, when I feel like I'm going off track, guarantee, every time I feel that way, I have dropped these small habits out of my own life. And so it's important for everybody to get a refresher. So let me tell you what we're going to do this week. This week, tomorrow, Tuesday, you're going to get an email with a link to, is it a document?
It's a template.
To a template that you can print out that is a list of all my favorite hacks. Every one of them. All the things that help me stay on track. All the things that are mindset tricks. All of the stuff that I do whenever I feel like I'm going off course. All of the little promises that when I keep them, my life works out. And the other assignment for this week is you're going to turn to page 33 in your workbook. This is where week 4 kicks off. And guess what it looks like? Exactly what the other days look like. Why? Because we're training you around the importance of dreaming big. We're teaching you the skill of being able to imagine what's not possible and to fight your limiting belief and your self-doubt as you start to shrink it. And so you're going to continue to write down your 5 big dreams. And interesting thing, since we started doing this at the beginning of January, 4 of my dreams have stayed the same. But by writing it down every single day, I'm getting more and more clarity around the next chapter of the business that I want to build, because I am forcing myself to dream big. I'm forcing myself to write about it every day. And there are some days that I've written it down. I'm like, that's not really specific. Oh, that doesn't really feel right. Oh, there's something off about it. And in the practice of just opening this up and writing your 5 dreams down every day, something interesting is happening in my mind. I am noticing my own limiting beliefs, my own self-doubt, my own shitty excuses starting to melt away. And I'm seeing my mind go, well, why didn't you write it even bigger? Why not dream bigger? Why not, Mel? And I am starting to see a breakthrough for myself in my ability to write down things that feel impossible right now and really feel grounded in the desire to want to achieve them. The other thing you've got down here are places for notes. And, I have insights every day as I'm doing this program. One of them I've already shared with you, that if I want to get to the next level in terms of the kind of company I want to create, there is a dream team of advisors that I need to surround myself with. Very big insight. I'm sure you're having the same one. I'm also noticing that not drinking the month of January, I had a beer like a week ago. I wasn't cheating. I literally was like, I'm just going to have a beer. Um, Other than that, not drinking has been huge for me. Exercising every morning, except for last week when I was deathly ill, has been enormous for me. And I also am realizing that I'm on the move so much and I'm creating so much because I host this talk show that I need more quiet time that is intentional quiet time. I'm not talking about quiet time while I'm commuting. I'm talking about taking time to sit down, to quiet the noise, and to tune into what my intuition is telling me. So, as a preview to the long list of hacks and tools that you're going to get tomorrow that are free, I want to walk you through something that we're sending you today. So, this is the 5-second journal. We created this a year and a half ago. I'm super proud of this. We put a ton of energy and effort and thought into this journal. For the price, it's $30, which means on Amazon it's probably closer to $21. This thing is so valuable. Look at how thick this is, first of all. Secondly, it's designed so that it can fold back on itself and lie flat. It fits in a purse, a backpack. It's not branded with all kinds of crap on it, so you're not going to be embarrassed if you pull it out of a business meeting. And this is the science-backed journaling method that I use. Now, I want to be very clear. Don't buy this. You do not need to buy this. The reason why you don't need to buy this, because I promised you I'm not trying to jam anything down your throat, is because today we are sending you an email with a link to a free template that you can download. It is a template of the inside of this page, and you can see that I have filled it out today. This is the journaling method that I developed, that people around the world are using, that is based in science that and research that we have pulled from Harvard Business School, from the University of Delaware, from the University of Florida, from Caltech. It leverages things like the progress principle and the Zeigarnik effect. These are all very fancy words that means there are small things that you can do to tweak your mind and boost your productivity and take control. So today, for example, you start off with the fuel gauge, which is you measuring your energy. I circled middle of the range, which is like meh. And then you go over here and say, well, why do you feel this way? Well, I've got some big news that's hitting this week, and I have no idea how it's going to play out. So that makes me feel uncertain. Kobe's death has certainly stirred a bunch of stuff inside of me personally and as a parent. And people around me right now are stressed. And as you've learned in this course, energy is contagious. And so that's why I woke up today and my energy was like, meh. So the reason why you assess your energy is because if you boost your energy first thing, it impacts your productivity all day. And so to feel more energized, what can I do? Because if you wake up feeling, meh, you're going to feel out of control. Well, there's things I can do. I can take time for myself today. I can listen to music. I can call somebody that makes me laugh. All things that will boost my energy immediately. In fact, just scheduling in the time ahead today to do those things will boost my energy immediately. That's important because it snaps my mind back in focus despite what's going on around me and helps me take control of my day. Then we jump down here to the Harvard Business School section and the progress principle. Today, my top project is staying optimistic. Now notice, it's not something physical that I'm doing. It's something mental that I'm doing. Why is staying optimistic important to me? This matters to me because my mindset is something I can control despite what's going on around me. The post we put up on social media today is all about optimism. Optimism isn't just throwing your hands in the air and creating and brushing everything with a positive lens. Optimism is telling yourself that regardless of what's happening around you, you can impact the outcome based on your attitude and your effort. And I believe that. I truly believe that. One small action I can take to move forward and be more optimistic: breathe, journal. When I feel myself stressing out, take a deep breath and remind myself that regardless of what happens, I will move forward. That it's not an ending, it's not a beginning, it's always a continuation in life, always. Why does this matter to me? Or other thoughts? Uh, well, that energy is contagious, and to really keep my force field up this week because people are so stressed. And today, I'm grateful for my family. If there's nothing else that Kobe's tragic death and his daughter and the other family should remind you of, is that life is fucking fragile. And if you're feeling it today, make sure that you double down on expressing your love and your gratitude for the people who are in your life that mean something to you. So today's training is all about the anxiety, the overwhelm, the fear that so many of you feel based on the belief that you have run out of time, that you don't have enough time, that the time for X, Y, or Z to go and be a veterinarian, to go to medical school, to launch that business, to leave your wife or husband that you can't stand anymore, to do whatever it is that you've always thought about doing or you've been thinking about doing, that you've somehow convinced yourself that you don't have enough time. And I'm here to tell you that is complete and utter BS. You are in control of the one thing that everybody cares about, that everybody complains about, and everybody's trying to steal from you, and that is your time. And in fact, if you're worried about not having enough time, let me tell you something that I know about you. You're not using your time effectively. You're not being deliberate about how you're spending your time. And the problem isn't time and whether or not you have enough of it. The problem is you're not being completely selfish, deliberate, and just in control of how you're spending it. You're letting other people distract you. You're letting your negative beliefs distract you. And so that's got to stop today. Because here's the truth. Whether you're 70 or you're 77, you have plenty of time to start working toward the things that you care about. And what's so interesting is I'm wearing a shirt right now. Don't you love this shirt? I love this shirt. It's made by a woman named Renee. What's her last name? Bazzetti here in Seattle. And I love her story. Mandy and I were just over. She hand makes these shirts, and I had no idea what her backstory was. She left her husband at the age of what, 46?
44, yeah.
At the age of 44 with two kids.
Court for 2 years.
She left her husband at the age of 44, had two kids. She was in court for 2 years. She literally went from being in her home overnight to literally moving in the middle of the night to her own apartment. And she had no idea what she was going to do. And she just told us, she said, at the age of 46, her attorneys told her only 1% of women actually find the gumption to leave a situation like the one that she was in. And most women don't leave because they don't know what they're going to do. They figure, oh my God, I'm so old. I don't have time to figure this out. What am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. Like the same kind of anxiety. Well, she left, and she told us that the best thing that ever happened to her is that her husband kicked her rear end in divorce court. And she literally left that proceeding with just about nothing. And so she was forced to figure out, what am I going to do with the rest of the time that I have? I'm 46 years old, and there's plenty of women out there and men out there that think, oh my God, at the age of 46, I don't have enough time left. Are you kidding me? I'm 50. I'm just getting started. As far as I'm concerned, I've got the rest of my life to figure out what I want to do and to work towards what I want to do. And so she basically, for 3 years, started working on making a shirt. It was the thing that she was interested in. And so this is the most important thing I need you to understand. Telling yourself you don't have time, it's a habit. Telling yourself you don't have time is an excuse. If you're telling yourself that the time has passed for you to go become a veterinarian, that's somebody's comment that I saw today on Instagram. If you're telling yourself that the time has passed for you to build a business, that the time has passed for you to do whatever it is, here's what I know about you. You're just afraid. You're just afraid of taking the step. And it's a lot easier to use the excuse that you don't have time, because if you tell yourself you don't have time, guess what? You're not going to find the time, and you're not going to force yourself to make the time to make working on that dream a priority. You know, one of the things that I wear right now is my little My Intent bracelet, this little thing, and my word for the year is deliberate. And when it comes to time, you have to be deliberate because you have plenty of time. It's a matter of whether or not you're being deliberate about how you're using it. And that's the thing that you have to stop. You got to stop giving your time away. You got to stop wasting your time with people you don't care about. You got to stop wasting time listening to the excuses from the past. They don't apply. You can make anything happen if you just start putting in the work. And that's going to require you to get deliberate about making the time to do the work. And you can do the work that you need to do to change your life 10 minutes a day. That's it. Start working 10 minutes a day. Start taking an online course. Start investigating going back to school. Start following people that inspire you around launching your own business. You have time. So stop with the habit of telling yourself you don't. Do we have any questions, Mandy?
Yeah, we do. From Diane on Facebook. It's a good one.
Diane on Facebook.
She wants to go to school to learn sign language to be an interpreter.
Great.
Her daughter's a junior in high school, and she wants to know if she should wait until her daughter
No.
graduates.
Okay, so she wants to know if she should wait until her daughter graduates to go back to school. Absolutely not. Let me tell you something, parents. The only way your kids are going to learn how to pursue their dreams and their goals is if you model it. Do you want your daughter to be the kind of adult female, to be a woman that puts everybody else's needs ahead of her? Do you want your daughter to start to think the same lies that we were all trained to believe, that there is a time to do certain thing and a right time? The only right time is now. The only right time to really push yourself to make a change is right now. And so what your daughter is going to learn when she sees you going back to school and she sees you managing your time so that you're focused on priorities that matter to you is she's going to be learning the skill of doing it for herself. It's one of the best things that you could possibly do. My mother did this when I was in ninth grade. She opened up a retail store when I was in ninth grade. She opened up a kitchen retail store, and it was the coolest thing to see my mom pursuing something that was important to her. It was the coolest thing to see my mom launch her own business and to realize, wow, you know, I want to be that kind of person. And I can be a great mom, and I can also have a business. And the way your kids learn that kind of thing is they watch you do it. And the question is this, Mel, why am I constantly victimizing myself? Why am I beating myself up? It's a great question. And here's what we're going to talk about today. You need to stop victimizing yourself. You need to stop beating yourself up. You need to stop telling yourself that you're a bad person or selfish person. You got to stop with this crap. All right. And we're going to address it today in this video. And here's how this is going to roll. I am reading my international New York Times best-selling book, The High Five Habit 2, cover to cover. Today, chapter 5, we're starting on page 63. The title of this chapter, Why Am I Broken? Or not, that's not what the title is. The title is, Am I Broken? Because you're not broken. Sometimes you feel broken, and the reason why you feel broken is because of the victimizing and the crap that you keep saying to yourself in your head. And today, that's going to stop. So, the other night, we were having a family dinner right here in this house outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and one of our daughters started talking about friction that she was having with one of her roommates. And here's what our daughter said. I just always feel like I'm the bad guy. It doesn't matter what I say or how I say it. Every time I talk about what's bothering me or I express a boundary, I end up feeling like I'm in the wrong. It happens so many times, I'm now telling myself, I'm selfish. I'm selfish for feeling this way. I'm a bad person for feeling this way. That's what my entire year has felt like, that I'm a bad person. I'm the one that's wrong. And I don't know how to stop feeling this way about myself. Do you ever feel that way about yourself? That you're a bad person or you're selfish for expressing what you need, that you try to explain yourself and it never comes out right. It always creates a friction. It always creates argument. It's always tense. I hate feeling that way. And I know that that's a really familiar feeling. So if you can relate to this, that you feel like people don't understand you, you feel like you're in the wrong, you feel like you're a bad person or that you're selfish for needing what you need, you're watching the right video right now, because we're going to address this. And I also want you to know you're not alone in feeling this way. This is so common, because as we're sitting around the dining room table here in our house outside of Boston, my husband, Chris, tries to console her. You're not a bad person. Yeah, you've done some kind of bad things to your roommates or as a roommate. We all do. But you're not a bad person. Everyone screws up. That's how you learn. Just promise me that you will stop telling yourself that you are a bad person. So this is step number 1. How to stop victimizing yourself. How to stop beating yourself up. Number 1, you must stop labeling yourself as a bad or selfish person. That's got to stop right now. So stop labeling yourself as a bad person. You can label behavior. You know, I feel bad that I was passive aggressive with my roommate. I feel bad that I lost my shit last night with my spouse. I feel bad that I didn't do the thing that I said I would do. I feel bad that I was gossiping about my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, whatever. You can feel bad about the behavior, but do not label yourself a bad person. That's rule number 1 when it comes to stop victimizing yourself and stop making yourself wrong. Rule number 1, stop labeling yourself as a bad, selfish, or whatever person, okay? It's good to label the behavior, because then you can focus on changing the behavior. But never label yourself as a bad person. And here's why. My husband, Chris, tried to console her and said, you're not a bad person. Everybody screws up. That's how you learn. Stop telling yourself you're a bad person. And then he went on to explain. After my restaurant business collapsed, I felt like a complete failure because the business had failed. Everywhere I looked, that's what I saw. I wasn't there enough for you kids, so I failed at being a good dad because I was always working. I failed at being a good husband to your mom because I hadn't made enough money. So I failed to be a good provider. And once I started saying that I was a failure, all I started to see was that I couldn't do anything right. And here's the problem with labeling yourself as a bad person or a failure, everybody, is that the more you repeat it, the more you believe it. You see, these labels that you repeat, I'm a bad person. I'm a screw up. I never do anything right. I'm selfish. I'm not a good person. All these labels, they start out as just you trashing yourself once, but the more you repeat it, it sticks. And this label that should be applied to behavior, not to you as a person, that label starts to stick. And then as you repeat it, it's no longer something you're describing. It becomes almost like the identity that you believe about yourself. That's why we got to stop labeling ourselves and be talking about the behavior we want to change instead. And what my husband said is right. The more you say it, the more you repeat it. And then you repeat it, you'll believe it. And it starts to become like a dark pair of sunglasses. Saying that you're a failure colors everything that you see. I want to show you something. I think there's sunglasses in this drawer right here. At least I thought I saw. Oh, we did. Okay. So when you repeat behavior, like I'm a bad person, I'm a failure, I'm this, I'm that, it's literally like putting on a dark pair of sunglasses. It colors the way that you see the whole world. Like when I don't have these sunglasses on, things are much clearer. If I put the glasses of failure on, I'm a bad person, I failed, it tints the way you view the whole world. And that's why we're going to learn how to take those glasses off. And step number 1 is stop calling yourself names. That's how you stop victimizing. That's how you remove the glasses. Well, then our daughter then responded to my husband. Well, Dad, I have that story too, that I'm a failure. See, being a music student, I walk into a classroom or a studio and I always notice all the much more talented and cool kids. And I think about how much further along they are in their music careers and whether or not they've been signed to a label or they're already releasing music or they're gigging. And then I look at myself and I say, well, I'm a failure compared to these cool and talented people. And then our other daughter chimes in and she says, well, we're definitely related because I always think I'm the biggest one of my friends and mom thinks everything's her fault. And then she turned to our son, Oakley, and said, Oak, what negative stuff do you think? And thankfully, Oakley has a sense of humor because he's like, I'm not getting involved in this conversation because you guys are really depressing. And that made us all laugh. And then one of the girls turned back to Chris and said, no, seriously, Dad, how do you take those glasses off? Once you start to believe that you're a failure, how do you take those glasses off? Especially when I do think I'm a failure and I do think I'm a bad person and I see all kinds of evidence that proves it. You know, my kids were onto something with this conversation because for the first 40 years of my life, my theme song was, I've messed everything up. And for me, this is what it sounds like. Well, might as well just flush the last 40 years down the toilet because I kind of blew it in high school and college, and I blew it in law school too. And I blew it in the first part of my marriage, and I was not a terrible parent. I was a terrible parent. And if only I'd been more successful and had the house where all the kids hung out and had the money to join a country club and been there for every birthday party and every lacrosse game. And oh, if I had only bought Amazon stock 10 years ago. Wait, there's more. If I only lived on a different street or had a different friend group or made different choices. If only I'd done it right. Well, I didn't do it right. And now it's too late. I guess it's all my fault. I really screwed things up. See, you've got some version of that in your head too. You've got some label that you've given yourself. Just like my husband had the label, I'm a failure. That's how he victimized himself. My daughter has the label, I'm a bad person. That's how she victimized herself. My other daughter has the label, well, I'm the biggest of all my friends. Nothing works out for me. That's how she victimized herself. My label, I screw everything up. That's how you victimize yourself. You need to identify the label. That's the pair of glasses that is tinting everything that you see. It's how you see your past. It's how you see yourself. It's how you see opportunity. We got to identify the label. So what is the label that you have given to yourself? You know, and as I write this sentence, it's hard for me to believe sometimes how far I've come. You know, I put a post on social media yesterday that was showing you photos of this house that Chris and I are building in Vermont. And it's overwhelming to walk into this extraordinary house that we're building because, you know, it was just over a decade ago that we were $800,000 in debt and about to lose it all. It was just 6 years ago, you guys, when my speaking business started and I started getting paid to deliver keynote motivational speeches. We still had liens on this house 6 years ago. And so to walk into this dream house that we are building and to realize that we have put our heads down, we have removed those labels, we have done the work to change the story about our life, we have done the work to stop victimizing ourselves and to start empowering ourselves, because that is the opposite of victimization. So step 2, after you identify that label and you make a promise to yourself that you're not going to call yourself those names, that's number 1, to stop victimizing yourself. Step 2 is create habits of empowering yourself, because empowering yourself, forgiving yourself, supporting yourself as you move forward and do the work to change your life, that's how you break the habit of victimizing yourself. And that's how you learn to do the opposite, which is supporting, empowering, cheering, celebrating yourself as you move forward. That's what's going to motivate you to do the action. And look, if Chris and I can go from having liens on this house 6 years ago to literally building an extraordinary business, changing our marriage to the point where we are building our dream house, a house that's so nice, I can't even believe we are going to live in this house, because of the hard work that we've done. But I'll tell you, the singular habit that helped us do it is we stopped victimizing ourselves. We stopped labeling ourselves. We stopped beating the shit out of ourselves. And we broke that habit. We changed the narrative by learning how to empower ourselves. You know, you're going to hear part of the horror show of what my early days were like. But just a few years ago, my life was a slow motion train wreck. My confidence was in the gutter because we were facing bankruptcy. My marriage was failing. I had crushing anxiety. I was unemployed. That was me in 2008. I faced these issues like a lot of high functioning adults do. I numbed myself with alcohol. I screamed at Chris, and I did anything I possibly could to avoid my problems. I wish I were kidding. Honestly, it's why I have so much conviction about everything that I'm teaching you and sharing with you. It's because I've used everything that I'm teaching you to save my own life. That's why I know that they work. After 10 years of hard work, I've rewritten the story of my life, and I'm here to tell you, you can rewrite the story of your life. The first step is you must decide you want to. Then the second is you got to stop victimizing yourself and labeling yourself, because that keeps you trapped, seeing life and seeing yourself through a very dark lens. And once you stop labeling yourself, then you create a new habit. You do the opposite. You empower yourself, you cheer for yourself, you celebrate yourself, and that's going to help you do the work to change your life. That's how you do it. It's not a sexy formula, but it works. I've rewritten the story of my life using that formula. I got sick and tired of where I was, and so I made a fucking decision to change. That's what I did. And then I put my head down, and I stopped saying I'm a bad person, and I started forgiving myself for the crap that I did. I started doing the work to change. I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm a best-selling author, and I'm one of the most booked speakers in the world, you guys. And I just got started in the speaking business 6 years ago. If you put in the work, you can make it happen. And you know, on this live stream, you see the person I've become. I confidently go after what I want. I crush it in business. I have an imperfect but beautiful 25-year marriage. We got 3 awesome kids. I am in the place that I'm meant to be. And I don't mean physical place. This is a spiritual and emotional and mental place. I love myself because I feel comfortable in my own skin. I love myself, everybody, because I don't label myself as a bad or selfish or broken or whatever person. I just encourage myself. I give myself compassion, and I work hard every fucking day to maintain that kind of relationship with myself. I have truly stopped victimizing myself, and I have empowered myself by encouraging and being compassionate with myself. And you're meant to feel this way about yourself too. This is how you're meant to feel. You're meant to feel comfortable in your own skin. You're meant to feel proud of yourself. You're meant to feel celebrated and encouraged by yourself. And look, I still don't live on the right street. I still don't belong to that country club. I can't go back and redo my college and my law school years. But here's what I can tell you. You can break the habit of beating yourself up over the past. You can break the habit of constantly victimizing and bashing yourself. You can break the habit of labeling yourself with these horrible labels and indicting yourself by saying you are this way. No, the behavior that you engaged in may have sucked back then, but you don't suck. You're just a human being, and you're figuring things out. And now that you know what you need to do better, you can do better. And here's the truth. There's no fast track to transformation. The steps are very simple and very easy, and I just explained them. But you're going to have to work these steps in little ways every single day. You can't buy self-esteem or self-love. You're going to have to build it. And a club membership, a different house, it doesn't change what's inside you. The way you change what's inside you is it takes sweat equity. You're going to have to stand face to face with the part of you that you hate. You're going to have to stand face to face and look yourself in the mirror and stop labeling yourself and victimizing yourself, and finally fucking forgive yourself for everything that you've done that you've regretted, for the hurt that you've caused, especially, by the way, for the hurt that you caused yourself. And then you do the work to become a better you. That's how you stop victimizing yourself. That is how you change. It's the only way to create the self-respect and build the self-esteem that you deserve. My message to you is you can change. You can. There are do-overs in life. In fact, you get one every single morning when you wake up. Look in the mirror and you decide, who are you going to be today? Is today the day that you're going to stop saying you're a bad person and you're going to start pushing yourself forward and encouraging yourself to act like the good person that you are? Is today going to be the day that you stop saying that you're a failure and you forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made and you encourage yourself to start a new chapter, standing on top of all the wisdom that you learned based on those mistakes? That's where you learn shit, guys. It's not when you're winning. It's when things are broken. That's where you gain the experience and the skills that you need. You know, you can change. You can choose to change. You cannot go back in time, but you can start having your own back as you use the time you have now to take control of your future, as you encourage yourself to change your behavior, and as you start writing a new chapter that makes you proud. Not a chapter with the old label, a chapter with a new, encouraging approach to supporting yourself. You know, the hardest part, honestly, of doing this is flipping your focus from what you hate about yourself or your past, and you flip the focus toward what you want to create in your life. You know, I love the metaphor of driving a car forward. That's why a windshield is a lot bigger than the rearview mirror. You're meant to go forward. So you need to stop labeling yourself, because every time you call yourself a failure or a bad person, you're looking in the rearview mirror. You got to stop doing that, and you got to start encouraging yourself to drive forward, because that's what you deserve to do. Yep, you screwed up. Me too. You know, the worst things that you've done, witnessed, or survived, they are your most powerful teachers. So I want you to stop making yourself wrong about what happened. I want you to stop victimizing yourself and bashing yourself. And I want you to just unpack it with some compassion. Understand what happened to you. Understand why you respond like you did. Show yourself a little bit of forgiveness and curiosity. Learn the lessons that are woven into every mistake instead of labeling yourself a bad person. Because inside of everything painful that's going on, whether it's your passive aggressive behavior or your anxiety or your frustration or the cheating or the lying or the drinking or the failures or the whatever it is that you've done, inside all of that, if you will allow yourself to get curious and if you're compassionate, if you unpack it, you'll learn something about yourself that you really need to know. And you're only going to find it with a little bit of compassion. And look, when we pick up the book again and I start reading on page 67, I'm going to go first. That's right. I'm going to tell you about some of my screw-ups. I'm going to share with you the gnarly, almost unrecognizable before picture of my life. I'm going to take you into 2 moments in my life that are so cringeworthy, you will not even recognize the person that I'm talking about. And sadly, they're 100% true. All right, we're going to stop right there on page 66 of chapter 5. We're going to pick up, you're not going to want to miss this in the next video, on page 67, where I take you through really the horrific shit I did when I was in college and law school. Stuff I'm not proud to share with you, but now I understand it's the result of the untreated childhood trauma that I had experienced. It's the result of having crushing anxiety that wasn't getting treated. And it was the result of me not understanding some of the deep-seated needs that I had. And so when I share these stories with you, I think, number one, it's going to show you you're not as bad as you think you are, especially when you hear the shit that I did. And number two, that when you understand what you did through the lens of compassion and you stop labeling yourself, there's all these epiphanies that open up, and you'll feel so empowered to finally do the work to heal what needs to get healed, to break patterns that need to get broken, and more importantly, to replace those old labels and those old victimizing, bashing, negative thought patterns with positive, encouraging, supportive new patterns. You'll also learn how to break those victimizing and awful patterns of behavior, and more importantly, replace them with positive, encouraging behavior. All of this is stuff that you can do. And that's what we're going to keep on doing. Starting today, you must stop labeling yourself, period. No labels, ever. That's number one. Number two, you can label the behavior that you regret because that helps you identify it and the patterns that you want to break and the things that you're going to unpack for the lesson. But never, ever, 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 ever label yourself. That's how we stay out of the realm of shame. That is how you stop victimizing and bashing yourself. Only talk about the behavior, never label yourself. And step number two, you must start to adopt habits of encouragement, habits of compassion, habits of forgiveness, and habits of celebration and self-support, because those new patterns will replace the old ones. And that's what's going to propel you forward. And it's going to help you build the life that you love. It's going to help you reconnect with yourself. And it's going to help you take off those horrible glasses that you're wearing where you view life through the lens of whatever label you got. That's how you do it.
Well, I 1,000% believe in manifesting. But a lot of us are doing manifesting wrong, where you create a vision board about the big vision. Mm-hmm. And what research shows is that simply having the beach house or the marathon finish line on your vision board is actually demotivating. Because what starts to happen for people is you see the thing that you want and you start to feel further and further and further away from it. And so, yes, you should have big dreams. And yes, you should write them down every day. And yes, you should do that because you have a filter in your brain that I'm teaching you to use and to program that will change in real time based on what you tell it is important. But the most important part of manifesting is activating something in your brain called the Zeigarnik effect, or the Zeigarnik effect. And that is for you to pick the beach house. So let's use a marathon, because a marathon is a really simple metaphor that everybody understands. Let's say you want to check off a bucket list item and you want to complete a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. Yes, put the finish line up. Yes, put the race bib up. Yes, put up all these things that show you what it feels like to accomplish the goal. But if you really want to get it done, also put on that board a photo of somebody running in the rain. Also put on that board a photo of an alarm clock that says 5:13 a.m.
The reality.
Also put up the reality. And then when you're manifesting and you're thinking about crossing that finish line, don't stay on the finish line. Think about what it's going to be like in February when you're on mile 11 on a training run and your earbuds run out and it starts to rain. And you see yourself continuing to run. And when you manifest and visualize and allow yourself to feel that moment, the moment in between, the work that gets you there, you want a business of your own, manifest late nights, manifest the text where you say, sorry, I got to stay in and work on something, can't come to the party. Manifest you being told no. Manifest the thing getting canceled. Manifest picking up the phone again, because what you're doing is you're socializing your nervous system and your brain and your heart and your soul to do the work and to not stop when all of the things that happen that come into your way will eventually believe. And this is a way to cultivate something that I'm going to teach you how to do, which is to have a high five attitude. A high five attitude is simply the belief that if you continue to work hard, if you stay optimistic, if you give up your timeline through optimism, through hard work, you can figure it out. Things will work out how they're meant to work out. You can make a difference through your attitude and your effort on anything. That's a high five attitude, that no matter what's going on around you.
Do you believe in pessimism and optimistic personalities, or do you believe that pessimism and optimism are a choice? Like, because some people have come from a land of no, and is that learned, or is that, is that something you have to work towards, the land of knowers who
depends on the baby's first word.
I think it's an excellent question. And I believe optimism is a skill that everybody needs to practice and learn, because all the studies show that when you have a more positive outlook, and I believe in realistic optimism. That doesn't mean toxic positivity. It doesn't mean that you can put a nice brush stroke on really shitty problems that people face, from poverty to racism to discrimination to all these things that are real. You may be facing a death in your family. You may have a heartbreak. Somebody may have cheated. Like, this shit is real.
Yeah.
But here's the difference that an optimistic or high five attitude has. When you become pessimistic, the obstacles magnify and your belief in yourself diminishes. When you start to, again, high five yourself in that mirror. And here's the thing, especially if you're going through a challenging time, you need it more than ever. Because when you raise the hand and you go to high five yourself, right when somebody just said, I'm sorry, I don't love you anymore, I've fallen in love with your best friend, the high five is also an acknowledgement that this fucking sucks. I see you. I see that this sucks. And it's also in the same time saying, and you know what? You're going to be okay. I got you. I got your back. You know, we don't watch a marathon, right? If you're a spectator at a marathon, you don't stand at mile 8 and go, you're not done yet. I'm not cheering for you right now. Look at that split time for that half mile. You don't do that. You freaking high five and cheer for the runners every step of the way, because it's what keeps them going. You see, we have bought into this lie that you got to hit the number on the scale before you're going to celebrate yourself. You have to have the money in the bank account. You have to have the right relationship. You got to be where you're supposed to be and drive the right car and have the right house and have the right friend group before you will celebrate yourself. I'm here to tell you it's the opposite.
Right.
You actually need to show up every day and give yourself the support. If you can drag your ass out of bed after these last 18 months and you're still breathing and you're still trying to do a little bit better, you not only deserve a high five, you need one. And one more thing about our kids, we can bolster our kids all you want. You want to know, there's so much too in this book about parenting, because I've got a ton of stories about parenting mistakes I've made, ways I've plummeted my kids' esteem, things that are heartbreaking, as I was writing this book, chapter 4, I get a text from one of our daughters. How do I not feel like the ugliest girl at the bar every time I go out? You want to know something as a mom? I can't change that. Only she can. If I stand in front of the mirror and say, but you're beautiful, but you're loyal, but you're an amazing human being, but you're funny, but you're this, and you will meet somebody, you just haven't met the right, but she can't even hear it, because it's not what she says to herself. So the reason why you have to make this a habit to stand before yourself, the human being, and see the human being in that body, and recognize that you're sad, or recognize that you're beating yourself up, or recognize that you're not where you need to be. And then raise your hand and say, I hear it. And you know what? I still love you. I still support you. I'm still here for you. Only she can change that for herself.
Yeah.
I can provide tools. I can provide a nutritionist.
Totally.
I can provide a psychologist, but your children and you, they got to do the work themselves. And so this
Mel,
is a tool that will help them do it.
There's something that happens between, young children, because I have a 5-year-old who can't look in the mirror, or 6-year-old who can't see herself, right? Because she's not tall enough to look in all the mirrors. And so she's not looking at herself constantly. And I would say all of our kids when they were younger just love themselves so much, right? They think they're beautiful and strong and
best singers, best dancers.
Yeah, my hair is amazing. I am beautiful. And there's something that happens with comparisons when they begin to, although she's obsessed with her older sister, but there's this thing that they have this confidence. And somehow, if we can think about that as adults, that, we have, at one point we were madly in love with ourselves, because that's what young children do, or they're madly in love with themselves, and then you lose it. So you had it, and then something happened for you to begin to lose it. So you can be inspired by the children around us, because that person hasn't changed. That person has just been told to not love themselves like that child has loved them. So it's going back to that original, like, I mean, there's so much beauty in that toddler or that 5-year-old who walks down in their tutu, and everyone's looking at them and they're like, look at me, you know, and we stop saying that. We say, don't look at me.
Yeah.
And there's a shift.
You're exactly right. Well, you want to know the good news? The good news is all that is wired into your DNA.
Yes.
Life made you doubt it. And so this is a way to get back to who you really are. And that doesn't mean you're arrogant. It doesn't mean that you're selfish. It means that of every human being on the planet, you realize you're the one person you go through life with, and that your relationship with yourself is the foundation of every relationship that you have. Because if you don't love yourself, you will never believe that somebody else truly loves you, and you'll continue to sabotage that relationship. If you are insecure with the person you see in the mirror, you will behave in insecure ways out in the world. It starts with you.
Expect your relationships to fill that. I mean, I think a lot of I mean, obviously people have to read this book, because I think it's going to help so many people, like you said. And we have been taking up so much of your time, but I want to ask one last question, which is, a lot of women, when we talk about manifesting or believing in themselves, their partner or spouse will be the first one to, you know, kind of knock them down, or be like, this is the dumb, like, what are you doing? This is so dumb. Or, you know, when they begin to find themselves, it's a really nervous feeling for the partner, and it can rock their relationship. Any advice? You know, we did a kind of like a dream, what was it, like a live, where people came in and they're like, I can't show my husband or my partner when we did the vision boarding, I could never show them, because they would just like laugh at me for it. I'm too embarrassed to show them. I guess you just work on yourself, and you like, you know, when your partner sees
let me give you a perspective check. Okay. On this. Okay. First of all, it's super normal. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to end the relationship. It's super normal to have the people closest to you not cheer for you and not celebrate you. And there's a reason why. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I think I write about this in the book. So there was a period of time after Chris's restaurants failed that he stopped drinking completely and started to get, you know, himself whole again. And I remember very distinctly when that happened, I was cooking and I went to pour myself a glass of wine. And I noticed I felt self-conscious that I was about to have a big glass of wine and he was drinking water. And so I immediately did what your husbands and partners are doing. I was like, oh, come on, just have a glass of wine. Why do you need to be sober? You know, Like I started sabotaging and undermining the changes he wanted to make in his life. Why? I'll tell you why. Because his changes made me confronted about what I was doing. And so Chris turned to me and he said, Mel, I don't want a glass of wine. If you want to have a glass of wine, great, have a glass of wine. And then he said this, nobody cares about what's in your cup except for you. So if you don't like what's in your cup, stop barking about what's in mine and focus on what should be in yours. And so keep in mind that any change that you're making is confronting to somebody who's not changing.
Right.
You have got to keep showing up and cheering for yourself. And this is especially true for women, because we've been socialized to believe that our worth is determined by whether or not somebody else approves or somebody else loves us. You got to be able to look in the mirror, to see a human being that you love, and to see a human being whose choices make you proud. And if everybody else has a problem with that, they need to deal with that with their therapist. And the more that you do this, the more you'll be able to express boundaries, and the
Yeah.
more you'll be able to make requests. And the stronger that you get, knowing that you have your own back and you're really confident in who you are, the more that your marriage will change because you're changing. And it's my hope that it changes for the better. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, as long as you are taking responsibility for your own happiness and your own sense of worth and your own sense of value as a human being,
Yep.
if that doesn't improve the relationship that you're in to show up as a better you, you're not in the right relationship.
I totally agree.
If you expect to achieve your goals, if you expect to reach your potential, if you expect to have your dreams come true, what I'm about to explain to you is mission critical. You must become a master at visualization. Now, for those of you that are like, what the heck is she talking about? I did not sign up for some sort of meditation woo-woo spiritual thing here. Don't worry. This is Mel Robbins. There's always science and research involved in everything that I talk about. So visualization is a extraordinarily powerful skill. And you may have heard of the law of attraction. You may have heard of the word visualization. You may have heard of the word manifesting. I call it seeing signs. So I'm a master at seeing positive signs. I am a master of creating coincidences. I have the world's most incredible luck. You want to know why? Because I understand the science and the skill of visualization. I know that your brain, it is a gigantic detective machine. Your brain is a filter. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence. And that's good news. It's good news when you know how to use it to your advantage. Let me explain. So your brain has a system in it. Here's the technical term. It's called the reticular activating system. It is a network of neurons all up in here. And what is the job of the reticular activating system? It is a filter system. It's basically a system that allows certain information in your brain and it blocks out other information. And guess who programmed that filter? You did. And so did the people from your past. And so if you constantly feel like you're unlovable, guess what? Your reticular activating system is going through the day and it is going to point out every single piece of evidence that confirms that negative belief that you have. If you think that people don't like you at work, the reticular activating system, the filter, it is literally going to be looking for evidence to confirm that belief all day long. This is one of the reasons why we have such a problem with politics in this country. This is why there's something called a confirmation bias. Confirmation bias means your mind loves to read things that you agree with, because reading things that you agree with confirms your filter. Why do we have a reticular activating system? There's a really important reason why you have this. The reason why is if your brain let in everything. Have you ever looked at a Facebook page? Have you noticed how many words are on a standard Facebook page, and the ad over here and the ad over here and the ad over here and the ad and the news feed right here and the stuff up here and all this over here? If your brain took in everything at equal value, your head would literally explode off your shoulders. Your brain would melt down. And so the reticular activating system protects your brain by filtering information and only letting in stuff that it agrees with. So that's the scientific reason and mandate for why you got to get busy reprogramming that thing. Because if you live like I have lived for a very long time, one of the beliefs that I had, and we're going to be talking about this a lot this month, one of the beliefs that I had for a very long time is that I was a bad person, that I was not lovable, that I did not deserve to be a good person, that people didn't think I was a good person, And consequently, that led me to do a lot of hurtful things to myself. It led me to do a lot of hurtful things to people that I cared about. And it really damaged decades of my life. And I believed it. I believed it, and it drove my actions, and I saw evidence everywhere. If you're going to do a mindset reset, you've got to change what you believe about yourself. And so for those of you that had a very negative assessment of 2018 and you're feeling down about your goals already as you look at 2019, you have a very negative belief system about yourself. And that's going to stop right now, because now we're going to talk about visualization and how you use it in order to start to reprogram the reticular activating system in your brain so that your brain starts to spot opportunity. Your brain starts to spot evidence that things are working out. Your brain starts to spot coincidences so you can build momentum. And it begins with visualization. So as you take your goals, right? So you've written down all these goals, right, for 2019. I want you to go to each one, and I want you to do a visualization exercise. And here's how you're going to do it based on science, because there's a particular way you have to do this based on science, okay? It's a two-step method. So let's take self-worth, because we had a question about self-worth. If your goal is to improve your self-worth, I want you to visualize what your life looks like and how you're going to feel about yourself when your self-worth has improved. Here's how you're going to do it. So there's two things that you have to do when it comes to visualization. You have to close your eyes. Truly, I know it sounds stupid, but I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to, in your mind, have a specific picture of what it looks like in your life when your self-worth has improved. You're going to see yourself speaking up at work. You're going to see yourself talking more about your business. You're going to see yourself leaving bad relationships. You're going to see yourself defining boundaries. You're going to see yourself going to the gym. You're going to see yourself taking care of yourself. And when you start to visualize the image of that, I want you to consciously, this is step 2, consciously think of the positive emotions that you're going to feel. I'm going to feel happy. I'm going to feel proud. I'm going to stand taller. I'm going to be so grateful that I made this change. Marrying the specific picture. Oh, there I am. There I am. I'm at work and I'm raising my hand. Amazing. I'm sharing my idea. There I am. I'm getting a promotion. There I am asking for a raise. There I am. I've just signed up another customer to my business. There I am. I've gone back to school. I feel so good about myself. When you do that, here's what's actually happening in your brain. This is the cool science part. You are training your brain to have a totally different filter. You see, your brain, my brain, it doesn't know the difference between something that actually happened to you, like the F you got in your test in 10th grade, and the things you imagine that are happening to you. Let me say that again. Your brain doesn't know the difference between the bad things that actually happened to you, the real memories that you have, and an imagined memory that you're creating. Your brain will experience you visualizing going to the gym, you visualizing how happy you feel when you do, you visualizing asking for that raise and getting it and how proud you're going to feel. Your brain, when you visualize in the way that I'm teaching you to, it encodes it as a real memory. And that's important because when you encode it as a real memory, it changes the filter system, that reticular activating system. And here's what we know based on research. The more you visualize things, number one, the greater your confidence is going to be, the greater security you're going to have about it. And here's the really cool thing. The more you do this with your goals, you wake up every day and you just visualize. It takes 30 freaking seconds for crying out loud. You visualize having a great day at school. You visualize curing your panic and how proud you're going to be. What studies suggest and have proven is that simply visualizing yourself doing things actually develops the skill and helps you improve the skills, just as if you were actually doing it. And so there's proof based on research that visualization helps you build skills. And then finally, the other thing that's really important about this is that the more that you do this, what we know based on research is that the reason why you start to believe what you think is because you are reprogramming your brain. You are changing the network of neurons that act as a filter. And so the more that you actually believe in yourself and you start thinking and visualizing yourself speaking up, the more confident you're going to become, the more skills that you're building, and you're actually going to do it. And then instead of looking for all the reasons when you're sitting in a meeting to not speak up, you're going to just speak up because you're going to have changed the filter. You're going to look for opportunities. This is how it works. This is why this is so incredibly important. I'm on a mission to get every human being in the world to add one simple thing to their morning routine. And it is called the high five habit. And here's what it is. Every morning after you brush your teeth and you get that gunk out of your mouth so you're not spreading that nasty breath everywhere, okay? I want you to take a moment, put your toothbrush down and look at the human being in the mirror. That's not your reflection. That is a human being who needs you. A human being who's beaten down, who feels forgotten, who is so sick and tired of your criticism. And I want you to just stand there and look at them and take a moment because the rest of your day is going to be about everybody else. And then I don't want you to say a thing. This is the genius of this habit. You can be on your lowest morning, which I was when I, again, divine intervention or stupidity. You can be the judge, right? It was April 2020, and I was having a moment in my life where I just felt overwhelmed by life. I was waking up. The anxiety had come back. I felt like life was unfair. I had lost my dream job. We were in the middle of the pandemic. My kids were in a state of huge grief and anger and frustration because university, had closed and, now they're dealing with it. I had a bunch of like all of a sudden my business is imploding. And, don't forget, just over 10 years ago, I was in a crisis financially where my husband and I were about to lose we couldn't even pay for groceries. My dad was lending us money.
Yeah.
And so it was triggering all of that. And I was thinking this, like, I've worked so hard. I'm a good person. Like, how could you be doing this to me? Like, I don't deserve, like, just.
And you were pretty successful at that point already, right?
God, successful.
I
was the number one female motivational speaker in the world. I had a daytime syndicated talk show in the United States. So 175 shows a year. Giving advice. I, had the 5-second rule book, which was self-published and a huge millions of copies sold.
But I think that's the powerful thing about this story. Even with all that success, you were still racked with self-doubt and anxiety and negative thoughts.
Because I hadn't had the biggest breakthrough of my entire life yet. And I had it one morning in April of 2020. You see, the 5-second rule is extraordinary, but it doesn't address what I believe is everybody's fundamental issue. And everybody's fundamental issue is that you either hate yourself or you do nothing but judge yourself. And this habit of relentless self-criticism and relentless self-rejection is the reason why you're unhappy. It's the reason why you're never satisfied. It's the reason why you can't take a compliment and why you're uncomfortable feeling celebrated. And it all comes down to the fact that when you stand in front of the mirror every single morning, you have this really subtle way that's not so subtle of starting your day by rejecting yourself. And I'm going to unpack this because it's
unbelievably powerful when you start to truly understand this. Because if you can't look in the mirror and authentically see a human being that you respect, that you encourage, that you like, that you're cheering for, I'm going to even leave love off the table, because I think that is so unattainable for where people are right now. Let's just go with, can you accept yourself? Can you like yourself? Can you see a person that's worthy of support, worthy of your encouragement? Can we just start with that baseline? Because for my research, the average person cannot. From my research, 50% of men and women do not or cannot look at themselves in the mirror because they are either disgusted by the person they see or they are disappointed by them. And for those of us that can look in the mirror, we're still rejecting ourselves because we focus on what we don't like, or we start to mindlessly think about all the things that we haven't done right or that we didn't do yet. You know, on this particular morning, April 2020, I'm overwhelmed by my life. I drag myself into the bathroom. I immediately see my reflection and I'm like, oh, God, you look like hell. Yeah. I start ticking off all the things, the saggy neck, one boob lower than the other, like, you know, how exhausted I look, the gray hair coming in, how old I'm starting to seem. Yeah. And then the mind, once it goes negative, keeps going in that direction unless you're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, not thinking about that. But so my mind's like going down the drain. I'm like, why'd I get up so late? I got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. God, you didn't even, you know, text him back yet. And the dog still needs to be. And I'm like, the beat down, the boom, boom, boom starts. And, you know, I don't know what came over me. But that morning standing there, could not think of a thing to say. And here's the important part. When you feel like shit, when you're overwhelmed by your life, you're not going to believe a pep talk anyway. Because it doesn't match how you feel. And so for whatever reason, I literally just raised my hand and I high-fived the woman that I saw in the mirror because she looked like she needed a high five. She looked like she needed somebody to say, it's going to be okay. You can do this. Get out there. And, you know, from that very first one, you know, it wasn't like lightning came crashing through the ceiling and, you know, stuck me in the head. That's not what happened. But there's definitely a switch inside each and every one of us. Yeah. So, like, think about the walls here. Yeah. Even when the lights are off, there's electricity in these walls. Even during your worst moments, there is vitality ripping through your veins. There is an electrical life force within you. And life can turn that switch off, but it's still there. There was something about this high five action that felt like a flip, like the switch flipped on, and all of a sudden the energy could connect back and something inside me turned on. Now, that first morning, I didn't go, yeah, like that's not what happened. I just felt this sort of shift from to, all right, you got a roof over your head, you know, your family's healthy, you've saved money. It's not that bad. Yeah. Get out there. Like, I didn't even think those things. It was more like the electricity, the energy in me, this vitality kind of kicked in. But it was the second morning where the profound nature of what I was stepping into really kicked in. So I wake up, anxiety, ankles right up the legs, feel like the rush of, oh God, something's wrong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I get out of bed. I start walking to the bathroom, and it's as I'm walking to the bathroom, I'm not even in there yet, that I feel something I have never felt in my entire adult life. And it's this. You know, when you're about to go to a cafe and you're going to meet somebody you're really excited to meet, right? Yeah. Or somebody you really love, you know, you're going to see them. Yeah. What do you feel right as you're about to walk in the cafe?
You're excited. You're upbeat. You know, you're anticipating something good happening.
Yeah. I actually realized I was feeling that way about seeing myself. Yeah. Now, I'm 53 this year. I don't think until that morning in April 2020, I had ever had an experience as an adult of being excited to see the human being Mel Robbins. I've been excited to see an outfit. or a haircut or the way new eyeshadow might look. But the human being, the way our kids, when they're really, really little, just love the sight of themselves, this unconditional support and celebration that's hardwired in your DNA when you're born.
Yeah.
And so as I rounded the corner that second morning, that's when the profound nature of this started to really hit me. And I stood there and I stared at the woman in the mirror. And I realized I don't think I've ever asked myself the question, what does she need from me today? I've never joined in partnership with myself. I have been so busy trying to get shit done, trying to make sure people like me, trying to make sure the bills are paid, trying to make sure everybody else is okay, trying to do all this stuff that is the stuff of our lives, that I have forgotten about the most important person, and that is myself. And again, I'm going to go back to a point that we have been talking about kind of in various ways, which is we all know that we're supposed to love ourselves. We all know that we're supposed to be kind to ourselves. You can read a quote on Instagram. You should talk to yourself like your best friend. The problem is how. You read a quote like that, you're like, no shit, Sherlock. How do I do it? I mean, like, what? Seriously? Right? How do you do that? I don't know. I've been beating the shit out of myself for years. How do I stop doing it? I don't know. And, here's the thing. Like, logically, we know it's stupid because if beating yourself up, being hard on yourself, rejecting yourself, trashing yourself, if it actually worked, we'd all be millionaires. We'd have rock star bodies. We'd have the best marriages on the planet. We'd never have to work a day in our life. We'd be on a beach somewhere. Like, it would work.
Yeah.
But instead, we have these patterns of thinking and small patterns of behavior, like not looking in the mirror at yourself is a form of rejecting yourself. Picking yourself apart is a habit of rejecting yourself. And so when you start your day like that, which you do, and then you go out into the world having rejected your very being, this is the reason why you are so thirsty for everybody else's validation. This is the reason why you are seeking your worth in the money that you make, in the car that you drive, in the downloads that you get, in the likes that you have, in the neighborhood that you live in. You think your worth is outside of you. And I'm here to tell you the secret to your fucking life is grab that worth and bring it back home. Start practicing a physical habit, an action that demonstrates to your brain that you respect yourself, that you believe that you're worthy, that you deserve forgiveness, that you deserve encouragement, that you believe in you. And as you start to practice the physical action, the universal symbol for I got you, I love you, I celebrate you, I see you, I believe in you. When you practice this physical action, the neuroassociation that is already in your brain with the high five to yourself in the mirror takes over. It's insane how this works. The science is mind-blowing. I think this is 1,000 times more powerful than the high five habit because it cuts down to the core of who you are.
You think it's more powerful than the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 habit?
Hell yes, I do. Hell yes, because the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that will push you to take action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool you use to cut off the worries that trigger anxiety. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that you use to create a moment of objectivity and control when you're normally triggered so you can consciously choose a different response.
Yeah.
The high five habit goes all the way down to the core of who you are and how you treat yourself. And when you become a human being who has compassion for yourself, who likes you, it won't matter what happens out there.
Yeah.
Because everything in here is healed and taken care of. And so, somebody can say to me, I don't love you anymore. I don't like you. It'll sting, but it doesn't change the fact that I still like myself. Because I practice and demonstrate it. That's the difference.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the hidden magic in the high five habits is, because I've been trying it the last few days, right?
And what did you experience?
It is powerful because...
Well, walk us through. Like you're standing at your bathroom sink.
Yeah.
And walk us through your experience.
Well, first of all, you have to take a pause from your life, whatever you were going to do. It requires an intentional pause to go, no, I'm going to now do this action for myself. And I've got to say, before I tell you how it went, I think it would have been very different for me a few years ago, because I feel self-compassion, you know, not seeking your worth from outside, from other people, from download numbers, likes, what people say about you, which was a huge part of my life. I feel that having put a lot of that to bed now and really feeling that I actually like the person I see in the mirror these days. So I kind of feel 5 years ago, I would have had a different experience with it, but it was still powerful, because you are just looking at yourself and you're putting your hand on the mirror. And I think what it is, it's just that pause, that moment of seeing me. Like, you are seeing yourself. And like, I don't know, you know, obviously as a guy, what do? We're often looking in the mirror. We might be looking at our beard as we're shaving, right?
Yeah.
But you're not looking at your eyes, right? You're just looking at, oh, I need to shave. Oh, I missed a bit here. Let me get rid of that. And then you crack on, right? Or you look at your face and your hair, but you're not really looking at yourself.
Right.
You're seeing your silhouette. You are seeing yourself, but you're not seeing yourself, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was really powerful, was that it's just another, like, I feel it's just another tool now, which is going to take me all of 2 seconds, if that, 5 seconds tops. It's not as if I don't have time to add that in. There's no harm in adding it in. And frankly, I like adding it in. It makes me feel good. It's like, oh, and I think it's what you say, it's the action.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything if you're not in the mood to say
I don't
anything.
want you to say anything, actually. And the reason why is the neuroassociation. So,
What do you mean by that?
well, here's what I mean by that. So, when you high five someone else, what does the action of a high five communicate?
It's just a universal symbol of you got this, I see you, you're great, we can do this. You know, it depends on the situation, but it's a good feeling. It's a mutual sort of validation type experience.
Tell me about the London Marathon and getting high fives.
Oh, I mean,
What did a stranger's high five mean to you?
It just gave you, like, and that's the key, it's strangers, right? You don't know them and they're looking at you and you're looking at them, or maybe you're not even looking at them. You just went through, you give a high five. It's like you've taken a shot of feel goods. It's validation. It's like, hey, you know what? We're in this together. You're standing at the side cheering, I'm running. But at that moment, it was like common humanity. It was like, there was no animosity. And actually, this kind of one of my big learnings from the London Marathon actually was, and it relates to this, I think, is that that's kind of who we are. Like, in what is considered a very divided world at the moment, I went and did the London Marathon, and all I saw was love, strangers giving love to other people that they didn't know, right? And how did they give that love? Through cheering, but more often than not, with a high five.
Correct. It is a universal symbol of encouragement, of love, of celebration. And the neuroassociation, whether you live in a culture where you've been high-fived or not, the neuroassociation is still there because you have seen them in sport.
Yeah.
You've seen them in marathons. You've seen teachers give them to kids. So your brain has a lifetime of programming in your subconscious that is triggered by this action. It is neurologically impossible to high five yourself and think you're a loser, you failed, I don't like your face. Your brain will not allow you to do it because the neuroassociation is so entrenched. It has only ever meant, I celebrate you, I see you, I got you, keep going, you got this, I'm behind you.
As you say that, Mel, it makes me think of gratitude, because when we are feeling grateful, we can't feel down. We can't feel anxious. We can't feel annoyed with ourselves. And in some ways, this is kind of gratitude for ourselves.
Correct. Because the thing about gratitude, which obviously has tremendous, demonstrated, proven benefits in your life, most of us are grateful for things outside of us.
Yeah.
What I'm teaching the world to do is to unlock neuroassociation in your mind and in your nervous system and aim it back at yourself. And use this simple habit to interrupt the critic, to break the default loops in your mind associated with judgment, shame, criticism, hatred for self, and to replace it with a new default setting of seeing yourself the way you see your child, which is love. Yeah. Like my kids do stuff that piss me off all the time. And I can be upset with them or disappointed with them, but I never stop loving them.
Yeah.
And there is something that has happened to each and every one of us that as life's pains and heartaches and disappointments and setbacks sort of stack up, we stop loving ourselves. We start judging ourselves more. We start condemning ourselves more. We start rejecting ourselves more. We start trying to seek somebody else's love and approval in order to fill up this well inside of us that we've been digging because we've been rejecting ourselves. And so, you know, it's so powerful because the action alone is what communicates it. If you're looking at yourself and you raise your hand on your hardest days, what the high five says is not, yeah, I'm amazing. Like, this is not going to turn you into a narcissist. This is grounded in compassion.
Yeah.
This is basically saying, I see you. You're right. This is hard. And you know what? You can do this. And I'm going to be here. And I've got your back. And when you send yourself into your day with that physical action, it leaves an imprint in your mind and spirit. Now, there's a couple reasons why. I don't even write about this part in the book because I didn't know this until I started doing podcasts for the book.
Yeah.
So Dr. Amen told me, who's, you know, one of the leading experts in the brain, that one of the reasons why you feel better when you do it, no matter how terrible of a morning it is because your brain has always given you dopamine when somebody else high fives you.
Yeah.
So these sorts of gestures are rewarded in the brain. So when you simply high five yourself, your brain doesn't distinguish between me high fiving me and me high fiving you. It just sees, oh, I know what that is. Drip, dopamine. Oh, I believe in that person. The second thing that happens is that your body is hardwired for celebratory energy. This is that electricity that's in the walls that has a switch that you can turn on and off. And so, you know, for example, when you cross the finish line of the London Marathon, what do you instinctively do?
High five someone.
Yeah, and raise your hands, right? When your favorite team scores, raise your hands. When you yell surprise at a birthday party, you raise your hands. When you say hello, you raise your arm. When you go to high five somebody, you raise your arms. When you hug somebody, you raise your arms. This is wired through your entire body. And normally we give that celebratory energy to other people or things.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, when you high five yourself, you flip the switch. You flip the switch and give yourself a little bit of that vitality that's coursing through you to help you move into your day.
Yeah, I see it as almost like it is about the high five, but it's not in many ways as well, because it's like if you're going down a road and the high five to yourself sets you off on a different path for the rest of that day compared to had you not done it, right?
1,000% right. So let's just use a great example that everybody can latch onto. Sport.
Yeah.
So if a team is about to play the championship in the league, right?
Yeah.
And they're the underdogs. What is the best way to send the team into that game? Is it to beat them down? Oh, you did a terrible job on the London Marathon. You're going to face plant in New York. Oh my God. And I saw your split times. We're fucked. No, that's not the best way to do it.
But that's what we do to ourselves.
Correct. Correct. And so I'm here to say, you don't have to say anything because you're not going to believe it. So we're going to cheat this We're going to circuit your
You're
feelings.
bypassing
Correct.
words. It's like when you take like this ridiculous example, but it's like when you take a B12 supplement, but you take it sublingually, so it dissolves. So you bypass having to go into the gut, through the liver, and then you get it straight in.
Correct.
And it's got that feel to me.
1,000%. And so you send yourself into the game of life with that sort of optimism, with that resilience, with that compassion. And, look, some days you're going to laugh. Some days you might cry. People report some days you're going to just feel a little bit better. And some days you're going to high five yourself and laugh out loud from the dopamine and walk into your boss's office and ask for that raise or quit. Because you're going to remember that no matter what, you're going to be okay. You're going to remember that no matter what, you got your own back. You're going to remember that it doesn't matter if nobody says great job at that presentation that you worked on, because you can walk into the bathroom, as people have written to us, having practiced this. Hey, I did a presentation at work. Nobody said a damn word. The old me would have walked into my cube and cried and thought I was getting fired. I knew I did a good job. I walked into the bathroom and high-fived myself. Your kids can stick this in their back pocket. And it's a way to reset yourself when you start going down that negative road. And why is this important? It's important because the high five is not going to remove poverty. It's not going to remove discrimination. It's not going to remove diabetes. It's not going to remove the fact that somebody just said they want to divorce you. It's not going to remove all of the trauma. It doesn't change those things. It changes you.
Yeah.
And it changes your relationship with yourself and your ability to believe that through your actions and your attitude, you can move the needle on those things.
Yeah, I love that last point, Mel, because the similarities between the way you talk about this and the way I've been talking about certain behaviors and 5-minute habits for years, they are so connected. And one of the things I often say, and I want to just acknowledge you for what you just said, it's not going to change your life situation. If you're in poverty, you're still going to be in poverty, but you're going to be a different person. You're going to be better able to face the stresses that are in your life.
Yes.
And I think this is such an important point, right? Because I have said this before on the show, but I always think it's worth reiterating that a lot of people feel that self-help or wellness is the preserve of the wealthy and the middle classes. But actually, habits like this, yes, they'll help someone who's got a ton of money in their bank accounts, because a lot of people like that are racked with self-doubt on the inside as well. But it's also going to help someone who is in poverty, or a single mum who's working 2 jobs and has got 3 kids and is really struggling. That little micro moment each morning where she sees herself in the mirror, she signals to her brain that she is worthy, that actually she's a human being with real feelings, and for all her qualities and all her, all the great things that she's doing, that has power, right?
Oh my God,
it is
amazing
free.
power.
It is free. There's not a single person pretty much who is listening to this or watching this right now who couldn't just either pause or at the end go, all right, I'm convinced, Mel. Like, go on, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't rush it. Don't rush it. So don't go into the bathroom and slap the mirror and be like, I didn't feel anything. I want you to, again, as you so rightly put, take a minute and just look at yourself, because for most people, that's the hardest part. I mentioned that, I get smarter and I learn so much from every comment and people that write their stories in. And one person, Allison Bird, a friend of mine, who made my ability to explain the depth of this so much deeper, because she said one thing to me when she tried it before the book came out. She said, I think it's working. I feel energized. I said, but what surprised me, Mel? I said, what? She goes, the resistance. I said, the resistance? What are you talking about? She's like, oh, first couple days I did this, I stood in front of that mirror and there was something in me that's like, I couldn't even raise my hand. There was this resistance. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I, of course, put something out. Hey, to the 700,000 people on the newsletter list, anybody trying this and feel any resistance? We write to everybody that's in our little test group. Anybody feel, holy cow. It turns out that most people do not have an immediate positive, oh, I'm doing this reaction. Most people have massive resistance to even trying it. And I want to explain why, because this is extraordinarily sad. And it also is an enormous opportunity for growth, because I believe, based on having 136,000 people go through a 5-day challenge online that we're monitoring in an app from 91 countries and seeing what they're reporting, I know that this takes 5 days to work. 5 days before you have an enormous breakthrough in how you see and relate to yourself. 5 days before the chemical, physiological, neurological, physical, and psychological change starts to go, holy cow, this is crazy. This works like this. And so the resistance comes from self-judgment and self-condemnation. And I'm going to tell you a story to drive this home. For people who stand in the bathroom mirror when they try the high five habit and they feel this resistance in their body, first of all, let me say, it's really normal to think this is weird, because it is, okay? It just sounds so cheesy. For those of us that grew up with Saturday Night Live, you're going to think of Stuart Smiley. You know, I'm nice, people like me, that skit they used to do about the guy who talked to himself in the mirror. You're going to stand there and go, seriously, Dr. Charlie and Mel Robbins, you two have lost your mind. But okay, if it's weird as you do it, that's a sign it's working.
Yeah.
So Dr. Leaf told me, oh, well, that's what it feels like when a new neural pathway is getting plowed. So if it feels weird, good, because we're teaching you to do the opposite of criticizing yourself. Yeah. But the resistance is something else. The resistance is the fact that every morning as you start your day, you drag your entire past into the bathroom with you. And if you're somebody who has experienced trauma or been abused or abandoned or neglected or grew up with chaos and addiction, or you've been the victim of a crime, or you're constantly having to deal with discrimination or violence, all stuff that you're not responsible for. There are a lot of people who take all of that from their past, and when they look at themselves, they see somebody who's damaged. They see somebody who's unworthy. They see somebody who is unlovable because of those things. And what the high five starts to become when you do it is it becomes literally an act of defiance. It becomes an act of strength. It becomes a sign that I'm a survivor. It becomes permission to heal. It becomes this deep sense of feeling and knowing where you are and the fact that you have an extraordinary future despite all of the pain and suffering that you have endured and survived. And then there are people that bring everything they regret, all the shame, all the regret, so the cheating, the lying, the stealing, the hurt you've caused yourself or other people, the missed opportunities. And boy, did I get an unbelievable example of this in my own life. So, I was doing the high five habit myself. And during the early days of the pandemic, my husband had just been diagnosed with depression. And he's a super healthy guy. He is a certified Buddhist meditation instructor. He leads men's retreats called Soul Degree. He's a yoga instructor. He's wildly involved with our community and with our family. He's a super high functioning guy. But he's just felt heavy. There's been like a cloud there, like a heaviness to him, there's no light between his eyes. And so thankfully, his therapist finally got him to go see a psychopharmacologist and somebody to do the advanced testing. They're like, dude, you have dysthymia. You have really long-term depression. You're lucky you've been doing all this stuff because it's kept you alive. And I turned to him at one point. I've been doing this for a couple weeks rather. And I'm like, I know I'm not your doctor, and I know I'm not an expert in your mental health, but I really think you should try this high five thing. I really think it's going to help you with this depression. He's like, I'm not high five. It is the stupidest thing. I don't care what you're doing. No. And I'm like, okay, if you won't do it for yourself, would you just do it for me? Would you do it for 5 days? Because we're in the middle of researching this now. And I haven't even shared it with my audience yet. And I'm kind of like writing down in my journal what I'm feeling. And I've got a couple people on the team. Would you just do it for me? He's like, all right. So he kind of did the first one, like, are you happy? You know, typical spouse thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know. So he did it for 5 days. And then I asked him what he thought. And he said, you're on to something really big. And I said, why do you say that? And I had no idea how dark my husband's thoughts were. I had no idea how much he was condemning himself, how much shame he felt. I knew that he was struggling with depression. I had no idea that for the past 7 years, the man who has stood next to me at the bathroom sink next to me would look up at the mirror and see a person that he hated. He saw a person that had failed. He believed that since the restaurant business didn't work and since it left us 800 grand in debt, and that his wife had to go out and make the money, that he was the world's worst father, the world's worst husband, and he has been condemning himself every day for 7 years. And the reason he thought the high five was stupid is because you only high five people you care about. You only high five people who are winning, and he, of all people, didn't deserve it. And for me, you know, I knew that he was struggling with shame around the restaurant business. I knew he was struggling with the amount of debt that we had and the fact that, you know, he had, you know, the investors lost money. Like, for me, I had a totally different experience. I'm like, you guys worked at that for 8 years? You made your investors whole? Like, you know, like, hello, entrepreneurship? Like, you know, we wouldn't have the 5-second rule without it. Are you kidding? Like, woohoo, we're winning. This is amazing. Like, his business partner had the same, like, he was proud of what they built, proud of how hard they worked. Chris, for whatever reason, that was not his story. Yeah. His story was condemnation, regret, shame. He could only see a failure. And, you know, what was wild about that is, you know, I've for years talked Chris up. I've for years have told him how proud I am of him. You know, he was the CFO of the business as the company was taking off. Yeah. Like, he owns half of it. Like, he's an integral part of everything. Yeah. He doesn't see it that way. And that's an important part. Yeah. Nobody can heal you. Nobody can change how you talk to yourself. This is an inside job. And so if you relate to how my husband feels, I want you to understand that what Chris said to me was that this high five and pushing through the resistance is an act of forgiveness. It's an act of healing. It's an act of support and compassion that allows you and shows you that you are giving yourself permission to feel good again, that you deserve to be happy, that you deserve and that you can continue to push on and go do better and be better and feel better. And that of all people, you're going to stop judging you. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.